Hello everyone, my name is Legend Ronnie and this game is Rise of Kingdoms. Sun Tzu Commander Spotlight version 2.0. Now I have done his Spotlight about 1 year ago. Well, in 1 year there has been a lot happening, so definitely it is the time to actually review him, because as much as probably some of you might not believe it, he is one of my favorite epic commanders and my primary and favorite defensive commander. So definitely I want to talk about it, and I want to give you guys the talent builds, I want to give you guys the pairings and much more. If you watch some of my war videos, you have noticed that in most of them, or even when my city was rallied, I used Sun Tzu primary. He is a fantastic commander for epic commanders. I did not had the same opinion about him like a year ago, but now I have a way different opinion. So let's go ahead and let's start about him. Now, first of all, being an epic commander, it's pretty easy to upgrade him, to be honest. In the end, if you look at my commander list, you'll notice that almost all my epic all of them, they are max skills. Well, they are level 60 because I invest a lot of time and I killed a lot of guardians. So for that reason, they are level 60 as well. But in terms of skills, in time, you're obviously going to max them all out. Just in case you're wondering about the cost in terms of stars, you have here the epic requirements. So this is an approximate number about the amount of stars that you need to max him out. And in terms of sculptures, you have for the legendary as well, and the others, you know, this is a little bit complex, but you have for the epics as well. So it requires 10 to summon him, and after that you need another 440 to max him out. Either is this specific sculpture or universal. Now, as a rule for most commanders, it's maxing out the primary skill before unlocking the others, and that is a very good tip. It doesn't matter for how old or how new kingdom you are, maxing out the primary skill is kind of a must have or must do, because of the power of the primary skill. I usually most of the situation, the primary skill of each commander is more powerful than the other skills. So I would always go maxing out the primary skill of each commander. Now, because mine has expertise, when I click on his primary skills, it already tells me the bonuses and what the primary skill does, because I have the expertise attained. But I can still check what the primary skill does before expertise. So before expertise, I am not so happy about this 450 damage factor to a minimum of 3 targets. That's pretty low, even though it still gives 50 rage for each target it hits. This damage factor, until he is expertise, is very low. So I would say that his full potential as a commander is gonna be reached once you obtain his expertise. Once you obtain his expertise, that's 800 plus 200 damage factor. That's quite significant. Up to 5 targets and no penalty. And what I'm saying about no penalty, you can check YSG or you can check Mehmed. Those two commanders have penalty when they hit multiple targets because they have a quite big damage factor. So because of the penalty, when you hit multiple targets, that might be almost reduced to as much as Sun Tzu or any other AoE commander does. 800 plus 200 again, that's very significant once you obtain his expertise. So he's one of those commanders that you need to obtain his expertise, but if you have to use him at the beginning of the kingdom, or you know, you're probably a couple of weeks in your kingdom, you still want to max out his primary skill so you can benefit as much as possible from it. You're noticing that he is an infantry commander and also has 20% skill damage increase. There's quite few commanders in the game that has these particular skills, which increase the skill damage. 20%, some increase 25%, some increase 50%, like YSG, but still, there are quite few. And as part of Epic, he is the only 1. Now I want to stop a little bit over here where it says master strategies, increase troops damage reduction. So this is where I want to stop, because you're noticing that it's separate, increased infantry's units health. So it has two separate things. It increased the infantry health and increased the damage taken reduction by your troops. So this makes Sun Tzu being a very universal commander. That means that you can literally use Sun Tzu in various setups, in various situations, because he's not just infantry focused, he can be also focused on other type of troops. For example, you want to use him with archers. The reason I would say you might want to use him with archers, or you might want to use him with cavs, because right now this is how exactly I'm using Sun Tzu, as hard as it sounds, but with a proper cavalry commander. So I use him with cavalry, but primary commander is Baber. So this is a proper cavalry commander, you know, with proper talents for cavalry and so on. So this is the talent build that I have right now for Babers. I have the one on Discord which offers you more mobility. So the one on Discord is including the march speed from the Conqueror and Moment of Triumph, which can offer you a slightly edge on the battlefield, and obviously this is the cavalry part. So in order to get the additional march speed, which honestly I like, I definitely like it, I've just noticed that my Babers is a target on the battlefield, so I wanted to make it more tanky. So I had to add him emblazoned shield. So in order to get, like I mentioned before, the march speed, you need to drop the emblazoned shield and you need to drop the attack and dragon saber, because you need exactly 8. There's 3, 6 and 8 to get the additional march speed. So this is two options. I prefer him with more march speed, because that's why you build cavalry teams. You want them to have mobility, either getting faster to the battlefield, doing faster damage, chasing your enemy down, or you want to retreat faster from the battlefield, because not all the time you win, sometimes you lose. So you don't want to stay there until your march is getting completely demolished, because once your march is getting like 50% or is getting lower, probably you notice the health bar next to your character. When it goes to like 50% or you notice is 50%, that's like the time you want to retreat, because your march is not so effective as it used to be. So you retreat it, you refresh it, and then you go back. So for that reason, I'm in favor of march speed. But because, like I said, he's a target, I had to modify his build a little bit for cavs to add him a little bit more tankiness, reduce skill damage taken by 12%. You know, that's quite significant. So that's how I actually use my Sun Tzu on the battlefield right now. Baber's primary and Sun Tzu secondary. Now the reason I do that is because the synergy of the skills. So I use cavalry, I have attack on my cavalry, I have AoE, which hits up to 5 targets and also slows them, and Sun Tzu does the same. It hits up to 5 targets and has rage restoration plus skill damage. On top of that, you take 10% less damage reduction. So all this in combination with Babers, you know, it makes a very nice and interesting pair, especially on the group, on the madness of the battlefield, when there is a lot of AoE, there is a lot of marches, you know, everyone just hit everyone, nobody knows what's happening. That's when you actually hit a lot of targets. So that's when actually Babers and Sun Tzu comes to their maximum potential. That's why I use them. Against single target, I'll be honest, they're fairly weak, because they're not actually made so much for single target. They still do significant damage, but way less than actual commanders that are built for doing damage on single target. But as AoE value on the field battles, when there's a lot of marches, it's insane. It's actually insane how much value you can get with these two commanders. So that's the reason why I'm saying that Sun Tzu is very universal, because he is so oriented in doing a lot of damage. So he doesn't have much protection to your troops. You know, he has skill damage with his primary, has skill damage bonus with his fort, and then his expertise, which also empowers even more the primary skill. Troops damage reduction, a little bit infantry health. And obviously he's a garrison commander because he's my main garrison commander. I will not change him for a very long time. I would not trade Sun Tzu as a garrison commander for a Max Charles or a Max Richard. No sir. That's just my opinion and my decision. Now, going forward into the video, I will show you guys the talent builds. So like I mentioned, like I said, he's my primary garrison commander. Not sure why it didn't show this. Okay, this is a huge problem as well, and they still haven't fixed it. So whenever there is updates, whenever you're going in the Lost Kingdom, whenever you're coming out of the Lost Kingdom, whenever they are doing modifications, the commanders from your wall, that they change. So this is something that I learned a very long time ago. This is something that you definitely want to check pretty often. Make sure that you have the correct commanders on your wall all the time. They are changing all the time, and I don't know why Frederick it keeps going first. I have no idea, but it still does. And if you have Julius Caesar, it's actually going Julius Caesar and Frederick. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem which they haven't fixed. The wall commanders, they kept changing all the time. So this is my primary wall defense. Like I mentioned, you can check some of my videos, you can check some of my my war videos, and you're noticing even when I get rallied or when I defend objectives, I use Sun Tzu primary and YSG second. Now the synergy behind this is because Sun Tzu is a garrison commander and a infantry in the same time with skill talentry. So this is a very good combination, very good combination. Let's go into the talents because that's where I started. So these are the garrison talents that I use on my Sun Tzu. You can find this on Discord as well in the talentry section. You'll find the link in the description of the video to the Discord. Now if you want to defend your city, this is a modification that I would do because you might not find the exact talent build. The reason I use Call of the Pack is because I defend flags, I defend a lot of objectives like passes, fortresses, I already mentioned flags, you know, any kind of garrison situation, I use him for that. So this is the reason why I do Call of the Pack. Because in those kind of defense situation, you don't have a watchtower. Watchtower is a city specific. And when I defend those type of garrison situation, I just want to increase the stats of that garrison as much as I can. And this is the reason why I have King's Guard. Increase garrison, attack, defense, and health by 3%. When this commander is serving as garrison commander, no effect when garrisoning cities. I'm not sure if it's actually true or not. You can definitely contact the support and you can definitely ask them if it's actually work or not in the city. Last time I talked with them, they said it does. It's just a typo, but that was a long time ago and they still haven't changed it, so it probably doesn't work in the city. But I still use it because like I mentioned, I'm defending a lot of this this structure, or even in Ark of Osiris sometimes I have to use him. When the obelisk is being rallied and I have a march available, I'll just plunk it in the obelisk, him and YSG, or now the nuker. It's not necessary to use him as a second with YSG. You can use him second to him. You can use Minamoto. You can use another nuker. That's nothing wrong with it. It has skill damage. It has the skill talentry. You know, rage restoration with his primary skill. The synergy is perfect. And you'll just do a lot of damage to whoever is gonna attack you. Right. So, like I was saying, if you're doing a city defense situation, I would take down Call of the Pack and the other 3 points from the infantry and I would do adamantine walls and nowhere to turn. So if you defend your city, that's exactly how I would do. But because I defend a lot of objectives, I need call of the pack, because those objectives, the march goes under 50%, even though you keep getting reinforcements and you keep getting reinforcements, but your march is going under 50% and you benefit from defense on all troops by 6%. It's same with archer commanders that has garrison, skill and infantry. You can do the same thing. Now another interesting build with this garrison for, I would say, Osiris League only, it would be with no die enemy. So you could drop Kingsguard and you can get no die enemy. But I would say that 3% stats, attack, defense and health on all the troops, it's a little bit more important than just taking some reduced damage when the garrison is surrounded. But still, for Osiris, because there is a lot of swarming in Osiris, no die enemy, it's a very, very nice skill. Talent tree, I'm sorry. So you can definitely take that one in consideration. Now I obviously gonna show you guys my infantry build as well. So this is my infantry build that I have on my Sun Tzu right now. You're noticing that I don't have elite soldiers. That's because I prefer rejuvenate. I prefer to have as much more rage restoration, even though I'm using with infantry, right? Infantry should be defensive. You should go more stats with infantry as much as possible. That's very true. That's probably a Charles or Richard situation, which are very defensive commanders. But Sun Tzu is very oriented in doing nuking. So even if you use him with infantry, I would still orient him in trying to do more skill damage, because that's how this commander is actually built. And as surprising as this sounds, people use Sun Tzu primary with YSG secondary with infantry, with pretty much similar infantry build. Probably some change it a little bit, but this is the one that I think it actually fits the best for him. The additional damage 6%, he only has 200. So his additional damage is 200 if you use him with YSG. YSG doesn't have additional damage. Latent power is a little bit useless. Unless both commanders have additional damage, then I would not go with latent power on Sun Tzu or any other commanders. But when both commanders have additional damage, like for example, I'll give you Pelagius and Minamoto. Pelagius and Minamoto, they both have additional damage. So obviously if you pair them together, you definitely need latent power on them. Or if you pair, let's say, Sun Tzu primary with Minamoto second, that's also a reason for you to get latent power. Not necessarily for infantry, but for a garrison situation. For a garrison situation, then you definitely need to drop some 3 talents, maybe Call of the Pack or something like that, so you can go with latent power. So for example, if you want to use Sun Tzu primary with Minamoto second, where both have additional damage, you then need to drop Call of the Pack, you go with latent power, and then the other 3 talents are irrelevant there, just some infantry defense and infantry defense, and you'll get nowhere to turn. Now that's pretty much about his talent builds, because like I said, he's so focused on doing skill damage, and whoever you're gonna pair him with, you wanna empower the skill damage as much as you can, and you want to get rage restoration as much as you can, and so on. Now my favorite builds and the way I use him right now, I already mentioned, is Baber's primary with Sun Tzu secondary. I already told you my garrison situation with his Sun Tzu primary with YSG second. This is my my garrison, because the skill damage bonus is stacked, so there's quite an insane amount of skill damage. And then this is rage restoration that you benefit from it, even though if you don't have archers or just partial archers in the garrison, you still benefit from some damage as well. YSG and Sun Tzu, they are 2 very universal commanders, which fit in a lot of armies, for the reason because they are focused on skill damage and rage restoration very much. They're not focused so much on just boosting one specific type of troops, or various other reasons. Like Charles Martel, he's pure infantry commander. There's nowhere else. There's only infantry that benefits so much from counterattack damage, and then you have his expertise, which again is infantry. His second skill is infantry. He doesn't do damage. This is just an absorbing shield, which also benefits more infantry. So it's very easy how you can tell about a commander if it's universal or he needs to be used with just one specific type of troops. Obviously, Charles Martel is a great garrison commander as well, but it only works if Charles Martel is primary. I did a video about Garrison Master Class. That's exactly how I called it, the Garrison Master Class, and that's where I talk a little bit more in details about garrisons and which commanders are the best depending on the amount of troops that you have in the city. So for a situation like mine, where I have over 2.5 million troops in my city, Sun Tzu NYSG is the best option you can get in your city, with Sun Tzu leading, obviously. And the reason why I'm choosing Sun Tzu leading is because of the skill talent tree, and I've done a video for that as well, which is called the theory for pairing epic commanders with legendary, the theory behind it. It's also on my channel. So there's quite a lot of informations that can actually help you to get the most out of your commanders, increase your output on the battlefield or defending. Now obviously, because he's a infantry commander, you need to focus on infantry equipment, but because I use him in any type of defensive situation, I can put even cavalry equipment, I can put even archer equipment. There's no problem. I can equip him with any kind of equipment because I use him as a garrison commander. So in a garrison situation, you generally have all type of troops. It's very rare situation when you do a specific type of troops garrison, even though they are the best, because you can use specialization commanders, but that's a very rare situation. People usually just throw in everything they have in a garrison situation. It's a little bit of chaos. So another viable options that you can use your Sun Tzu is with our sweet new Ethelflaed. So that's another viable combination: Sun Tzu primary, Ethelflaed secondary, full infantry. If you want to go for the battlefield, Sun Tzu primary, Barca secondary. This has been a very old build that people have been using, and it works very well. Sun Tzu primary, Alexander the Great secondary. Alexander the Great secondary has a 1700 direct damage factor with his second skill, which is a passive skill. It can go off, right at the beginning of the battle, which is quite great. So empowering this with the skill talent tree and the skill damage bonus, that's actually not bad, using Sun Tzu primary and Alexander secondary. If you want to go a little bit more defensive and buffing in the same time, or debuffing, you can go Sun Tzu primary, you can go Constantine secondary. Sun Tzu primary, Julius Caesar secondary. That also works. You have nuke with Sun Tzu and rage restoration and all that, and you have some protection, all damage increase, plus more troops with Julius Caesar. For the purpose of more nuking and AoE damage, if you want to go with infantry, you can definitely use Sun Tzu primary and Mehmet secondary. There's nothing wrong with that as well. So this is what I'm trying to show you guys, how universal of a commander Sun Tzu is. People use Richard and Sun Tzu as well together. I would prefer Richard primary, but you can definitely put Sun Tzu primary as well, since you'll have the skill, more rage restoration and all that, which sounds really good. But at some point, if they actually target you, you might just have a lot of severely wounded, because you'll do a lot of skills because of Sun Tzu, Rage Restoration, and you'll bring up back a lot of troops while you're not doing so much damage. So all those troops that come back is just gonna bring you more severely wounded. So it has ups and downs going Richard with Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu with Osman, not something I would highly recommend, but it's also a very viable pair for terms of nuking. That also works. Sun Tzu primary, Osman secondary. You wanna pair Sun Tzu primary with LG Mundok. This is an infantry pair which I used. I tried 1 versus 1 and it's a very interesting build. It works very much. They both have direct damage factor. So there's nothing wrong in pairing Sun Tzu primary. That's all the bonuses you can get from the skill talent tree. And you'll just power, even though it's 750 damage factor, it's nothing that crazy. That's very true, but you'll empower his skills. If you put Eulji primary, what bonuses do you have on his talent tree to empower the skill damage? Not so many. I agree. So for that reason, I like Sun Tzu primary and I like Eulji second. They also can make a pair in the Garrison if you want to put them together. There's nothing wrong with that. They both can be in the Garrison. If you need to defend your city, you probably don't have that many legendaries. Works very fine. You have attack and defense to your infantry and 10% chance to increase his own troops damage by 100%. So there's nothing wrong in using Sun Tzu and Eulji together. You wanna go buffing? That's an insane amount of rage restoration. Sun Tzu and Joan of Arc, that's gonna be crazy. Literally crazy. Additional 50 rage per second for 4 seconds. That's another 200 rage. You can get up to 250 from Sun Tzu, and then you have the skill tree. That should be a machine of skill. It might just be overkill, but in the same time you'll buff your allies and your other marches on the battlefield. So this can also work. You wanna add a little bit of tankiness on your Sun Tzu. You're feeling that the moment is getting swarmed, is kind of going down very fast. You can pair him with Scipio Africanus and try it out. See how that works. It's not a bad pairing situation. Sun Tzu and Frederick, I haven't tried it. Because you're probably wondering, I have maxed out Frederick, but I haven't tried. Sun Tzu primary, Frederick secondary. And as a second in command, there's various other pairings that you can do with Sun Tzu as long as he's second in command, because like I mentioned, he's very oriented on doing skill damage. That's why I use Babers with Sun Tzu. You can even go Mehmed if you want to use Sun Tzu as a secondary. Second to Boudica, second to Pelagius, but this should be temporary stuff. Right. Another interesting build which I've used with Sun Tzu, but I cannot guarantee how good it is, it was with Saladin. So on a defensive situation, I didn't have YSG available because I was rallying, so I had to defend with Sun Tzu, and I think Minamoto was out on the field as well. So I did put Sun Tzu primary and Saladin secondary, because of the skill damage taken reduction, the counter attack, and some boost to the Cavs as well, plus a very powerful nuke against a rally. But I cannot conclude if this was a very good defensive situation, because the rally was swarmed down. So they had way more dead troops than we had. But I felt a little bit that it was a little bit more tankier with Saladin at second. Obviously, I didn't have the AoE and the same amount of nuke, while having YSG as a second, because there's 50% skill damage. So WTF to that's a lot of skill damage. That's pretty much all I have to say about Sun Tzu. Again, he is a great commander. You definitely want to work on that. I also done a video like the top 3 epic commanders you should work on, and that is Sun Tzu. Pelagius is the second, and the third one is Hermann. If you want to check that video as well, that's a very interesting video. I've talked about builds and more in depth as well about it, and you'll definitely enjoy it. Definitely want to work on Sun Tzu. He is a great commander. That's pretty much about it. Like I said, a lot to talk about it, you know, because he's a wonderful commander. Until next time, this is your boy Legend Ronnie signing off. Peace out, yo, and take care.